next presenter is Jason Cathy. His thesis is titled Activating a Competitive Drive, a training program created to build a foundation for post-college success. And his supervising professor is Dr. Michael Burns from the Department of Communication Studies.
Let's give it up for Jason!
All right, let's get motivated, guys. We want to be excited. My thesis is motivating and it's passionate, so I want you guys to have that energy, you know? Don't worry about what you ate. Just get a little motivated. All right, thank you, Logan. So that's my favorite song called Higher. But as Dr. Haas, thank you for the introduction. I'm Jason Cathy, and I created a thesis called Activating Competitive Drive with the help of the great Dr. Michael Burns. And so in my thesis, I wanted to create a training program to help college students have a better chance of being successful after they graduate. And so this was a problem because a McKinsey study shows that only 1 in 4 employers think that college students are adequately prepared to enter the workforce and have that successful time after graduation. So with my research and studies and training program, I think we can help solve this problem a little bit. So today, I'd like to talk about my motivation for writing this thesis, self-help and leadership books that I used in my thesis, the 5 themes I extracted from these books, and the final product, which is the great training program. So let's continue this motivation and listen to one of the top motivational speakers in the world, just in case you're not hyped yet.
You've never looked at yourself in the mirror and said, you let you down. Until you get to that point, you let you down. You're not brave enough. You want to put it on somebody else. The reason why I'm not successful is because of my boss. Have you ever looked at yourself in the mirror and said, I'm not getting up on time. I'm not going to work on time. I'm not putting in 120% when I'm at work. I let me down. And when you get to the point where you can say you let you down, I don't.
So that's Eric Thomas, one of the top motivational speakers in the world.
You've never looked at your...
I just wants to motivate you again. But this is what I listened to. This connects with my motivation because this is what I listened to when I was behind sports in high school. So I didn't start playing sports really until freshman year of high school. So I was way behind all my peers, and I just felt like I could catch up. I can compete with them. I could be at their same level. So I started watching these YouTube videos and these motivational, inspiring YouTube clips like Eric Thomas just showed. And I read a little bit of motivational books at that time. So fast forward to 4 years through high school, I finally was on varsity for all the teams I wanted to be a part of, and I felt like I was competing at the same level as my peers. So fast forward again to my time in the Air Force. I enlisted in the Air Force right out of high school, and in my 2.5 years in the Air Force, I used that competitive drive that I picked up on watching these motivational videos and reading these motivational leadership books, and I put that to my work in the Air Force. And in 2.5 years, I was selected for a scholarship to come to college, which brought me here to Texas State University, which I'm beyond blessed to be. But when I came here, I realized that college students really aren't as amped and as crazy as me, and they're not thinking about their future as much as they're just thinking about, oh, I need to pass this test, oh, I need to do this assignment. I mean, there are some who are already competitively driven, but we can make a majority more competitively driven. So that's why we went to research with Generation Y and Z and figured out that, like the McKinsey study showed, that these generations aren't really ready for the workforce because they haven't built that competitive drive that I'll talk about later in the presentation. So knowing the benefits of self-help and leadership books helped me make the training program that I created. But first, we had to start with the self-help and leadership books that helped me build my own competitive drive. So these are the 9 books I chose out of 40 that I read that best suit the needs of college students, because you want to be looking at what Generation Y and Z, their like actual needs are. And it ranges from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So if you're into motivation and leadership, you probably know that book by Stephen Covey. And then the latest book on this list is the best book, I think, and that's Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, which is all about destroying those mental limitations and really becoming competitively driven with yourself. So through conducting a thematic analysis and using quantitative methods to perform open coding, I connected, collapsed, and combined themes through axle coding, which is just relating the themes. And I was able to extract 5 central themes from these 9 books. And the 5 themes are have to be done in order, and it starts with be present and know your why. So first you want to start with that far outreach. You want to know why you're doing what you're doing. You want to have something to be passionate about and have a focus and have a direction. The next thing is take intentional action towards your passion. So once you have your focus, now it's time to start building those building blocks and take those actions, build those habits, and continue on in the right direction to reach whatever goal you set forth for yourself. And number 3 is to take ownership of your circumstances. So after you start taking intentional action towards your passions, you're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna mess up, you're gonna fail, but if you take ownership for that all, it's only gonna make you more powerful, it's only gonna make you more motivated because you're gonna be able to fix and be able to become more self-motivated and self-reliant. And then 4th is persevere past all and every roadblock. Now this may sound really simple, persevere past your roadblocks, but it's all about going through the challenges, going through the obstacles, because that's where you're gonna learn most of your lessons is through these hard times. And then final, and last but not least, is compete against yourself. So through all these 5 steps, you wanna be sure you're thinking about you first. You're thinking about your why, you're thinking about your passions. Because if you're focused on what your competitor is doing, even though we're competing in a sense, they have different dreams, they have different visions. They might not just want to win that race. They might have other aspirations. So you're just going to throw yourself off if you're not solely focused on competing with yourself and making yourself the best version of you that you dream. So after analyzing these books and extracting those 5 themes, I was able to create a training program that's a needs-based training program. And so this is an example of one of the modules. Sorry, you can't really see back there. But so this is what your why, and there's going to be 5 different modules, learning modules, and each one has its own learning objectives because at the end of this module, you want to be able to write down what your why is. So it starts off, like we saw earlier, with a motivational video to get everyone's attention, and then we discuss that video in a group, followed by a lecture of why your why is important and the uses that come from figuring out what your why is. And then finally, this one is an individual activity, but some of them have group discussions. And the last individual activity is actually writing down what your why is. So because of time purposes, these are just sample questions of the worksheet of how to figure out what your why is. So the first question is, what makes you feel alive? Then, what comes easy for you that others reach out to you for? And finally, what do you want to be remembered for? So just to make a quick example, I already did mine, and I'll just tell you what makes me feel alive is motivating others and talking about their goals. Is honestly what makes me feel good and what makes me feel alive. What comes easy for you that others reach out to you for? So what comes easy for me is just positive self-talk and motivation again. Same kind of thing. And then what do you want to be remembered for? All I want to be remembered for when I leave this earth is that I was able to make a difference in someone else's life, that helped them see the light when all they could see was dark. So that's what really I want to be remembered for. So that brought me to concluding and finding my why, which is competing for the life I want because I told others it is possible to achieve your dreams. And that's my why because when I'm working out, because I like to compete in obstacle races, so I have to work out hard, I have to run all the time. And when I'm working out and I told other people, oh, you could do it, you just gotta push past that pain, you gotta push past that hard time. I can't give up on my own dreams if I'm trying to inspire other people to fulfill theirs. So that's why it's my why. So in this presentation, I discussed with you my motivations for creating this thesis. I discussed with you the books that I used to help write my thesis, which are all summarized in my thesis. And then I went through the 5 themes that I extracted from those books. And I gave you a quick glimpse of the training program, and I went over of how I figured out what my why was with some sample questions. So through this training program and through my thesis, I hope that we can prove studies like the McKinsey study wrong and show that Generation Y and Z are ready to face the workforce and are motivated and do have a competitive drive. So thank you. That concludes my briefing. Are there any questions? Any questions? Yes.
What are, I guess, because I know you said obviously you want to be a motivational speaker. What would be your target audience?
my target audience
Yeah.
for this program.
Well, because maybe this is just like the beginning of
Yes,
something,
ma'am.
but like your end goal, like
My
who,
end goal?
yeah, who do you want to serve, I guess, with this
Mhm.
methodology?
I think it all starts probably in high school or early on in college, that you can really like build a strong foundation for a drive and for your motivation. But still, high schoolers could be too immature to understand and grasp the concept. So I guess college would be the perfect place to start. And I mean, Dr. Burns had a discussion about this, and I always wanted to do after college. But it's really in college when people start to find themselves. It's really that time when you're able to explore and see like what your true passions are for life. So probably a college-based audience.
Curious to know some about your assessments. How would you
Yes, sir.
know? How would you know if this program worked? What would you look for? What's the turnaround? Like, are there goals for how long it takes for this program to be implemented? Those sort of things.
Yes, sir. So each training program, like wherever it's conducted at, will have a needs assessment, and then you'll find out the needs of the trainees, and then base it off that. So this was just the training in my thesis is just an outline pretty much, because it will have to be adjusted to the different audience it goes to based on their needs and what they need out of the training. And then finally after that, you'll have another assessment to see if it's actually working or things were actually taken away. If that answers your question.
Yes, it does.
Yes, sir. Yes, Dr. Burns.
Talk a little bit about the importance of the skills and why this training is unique to, or is a unique counterpart to the books that you read, and what gap that you're filling in, and why you're focusing on a skills-based training.
So all these great leadership and motivational books have really great content, really great stories, really great lessons, but no one's really offering a skills-based training, and that's what you need to develop and grow in life, is to try to develop these skills, these habits, and traits. So with my training, you're gonna get the hype from all the books, you're gonna get that motivation and quotes, but then we're gonna focus on the groups and different scenarios, and actually start activating that competitive drive by building these first set of skills.
Focusing on the how to do it.
Yes, sir, focus on that.
Jason, do you think that your time in the Air Force has any influence on this, other than like having a real different viewpoint than maybe your average 19-year-old coming to college coming straight from high school? Or do you think there's other ways that it influenced you as well?
Yeah, I think definitely does have an influence, because you do go through a lot of training, and I have a lot more discipline just from my military experience. However, I was pretty uncommon amongst my military members, so I think it started in high school, and I built upon that. And then being competitively selected for the scholarship program just proved to myself, like, not to toot my own horn or anything, but it just proved to me that I was actually really doing something different than what my peers were doing.
I just see in a lot of our veterans that a real openness to training,
Yes, ma'am.
more than, they sort of a lifetime of,
Yes.
so that they're, so, in fact, a student wrote on their honors application, how did you find out about this? Well, new student indoctrination, which we think of as a bad thing, but he didn't think indoctrination wasn't a bad, right? Like that was a good term to him. So it just was a little bit different view towards training.
Okay. Oh, with that aspect, yes, that's all military, because we go through training after training after training, and we see the benefits from it. So you can't shoot a gun unless you're trained on it. So, yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
What makes your training program unique to all the other programs that's out here?
So what's my competitive edge?
Yes, sir.
My competitive edge is that it's with the latest content. As I said before, like the latest book in here is from David Goggins, who is just going viral right now with how his mind works and his motivation for doing what he's done in life. So I think this training is always going to be adapted, because there's always going to be new information. There's always going to be guys like David Goggins putting out great content that I can use in my training and keep ramping it up. The training programs I see out now, like Covey's program is still widely used, and nothing wrong, Covey's program is great. It's used in this thesis, like it's one of the best out there. However, we have to adapt to the times. Like millennials don't think like generations before them. They don't think like X-Gen. They don't think like baby boomers. So we have to keep tailoring training to fit the needs of the generation that is now, or fit the needs of the trainees. So I think as long as my training keeps adapting and focus on the needs, that is always going to have a competitive edge over the other ones. Good question. Yes.
Thank you. And just to build on that, what are some of the specific needs of your generation that you feel like aren't adequately addressed in, let's say, some of the classic books?
Well, I feel the needs of this generation is not being soft, and that's like one of the biggest. I don't know if I'm saying this really correct, but this generation is known for like taking everything too much to heart and just not being competitively driven to reach out and find their own goals. They're still worried about what mom and dad thinks and what grandma thinks, and they're still making decisions for them. But if you get competitively driven and you're self-motivated, you're gonna be more likely to succeed, in my opinion. So I think that's the main focus, and that's David Goggins' main focus is his book, is that everyone's just really soft. And so you gotta callous your mind, as he says, and become more mentally strong and compete for the life you really want.
Guess we're good.
We're good? All right, thank you guys for listening.